Hello everyone, and welcome back to the newest series on the channel, redrafting the top 10 blank, a certain position of player from an NHL draft. In the last one of this series, we redrafted the top 10 forwards of the 2009 NHL draft, and today we are jumping ahead into the future a little bit, and we'll be redrafting the top 10 defensemen of the 2016 NHL draft. I like looking at redrafts in this way because it holds to the assumption that if a team were going to draft a defenseman and knew what would have become of who was on the board, they would have actually selected the best defender available and not necessarily a good player of another position. So did the Vancouver Canucks miss out on Matthew Tkachuk by taking Olli Juolevi with the 5th overall pick in 2016? Technically, yes, but I'm not sure if that's ever something that was even on their mind if they were decided on a defenseman all along. Without having the ability to go into the minds of every general manager, that is the assumption that I'm going to move forward with. What makes this draft class so interesting is that in this draft, 8 of the first 20 selections were D-men, and the draft as a whole is tied for 6th most D drafted in the last 20 years. Therefore, it's surprising to think that now close to 6 years down the line, only 10 of these D who were drafted have played in more than 100 NHL games. Although many of the top selections have made the NHL, the question begs to be asked, did the teams who selected defense with their pick truly select the best possible D-man available? When reflecting on this class a few years down the road, it's time to begin deciphering which teams may have struck gold and which busted big time. To do that, we'll be looking at a few different statistics. Admittedly, I'm not a statistician and I cannot tell you every advanced stat in hockey. But that being said, I will be basing much of my evaluation today on the following stats: points, blocks, even strength team on ice save percentage for that player, and even strength team goals for and goals against per 60 minutes of that player on the ice. These last two obviously take much more than just the one player into account, but I do see these stats as more representative than a simple plus-minus and should reveal trends when looking at the numbers over the course of a player's career. It may still be a bit early to look at these players, but I do believe that a gap of separation is starting to form, and I would love to make this video now and then revisit it in a few years to see how my rankings shape up to the NHL of 5+ or whatever years from now. The information that I cover is quite comprehensive, so feel free to use the timestamps below to jump ahead to your favorite team, or sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Funnily enough, the first selection of this redraft is not a redraft. Selecting the first defenseman of the second round of the 2016 draft, the Columbus Blue Jackets selected Andrew Peeke with the 34th overall pick, and I do indeed have him as the 10th ranked defenseman of his class. After getting drafted, Peeke went on to play 3 more years with the University of Notre Dame, putting up 52 points and being a +20 in 119 games. In 2019-20, Peeke finally made the jump to the AHL and was impressive with the Cleveland Monsters, scoring 16 points in 29 games before getting called up to the NHL, where he scored a goal and 3 points in 22 games. His what would have been rookie season was shortened due to a broken finger, and after scoring 3 points through 11 games in the pandemic-shortened 2020-21 season, is currently in what is his official rookie season. As of this recording, Peeke has 12 points in 60 games through the 2021-22 season and is progressing quite nicely on the Blue Jackets' blue line. Although comparatively a bit of a late bloomer with a smaller sample size, Peeke has really shown what he is capable of this season and, in an 82-game average over the course of his career, scores 2 goals, 16 points, blocks 139 shots, and even throws 180 hits. When Peeke is on the ice at even strength, the Blue Jackets score 2.4 goals per 60 minutes, allow 3.2 goals per 60 minutes, and have a team save percentage of 90.2%. If I see anyone really rising up the ranks in the coming years, it would be Andrew Peeke, and the Blue Jackets did very well to draft him at 34th overall. With the 28th overall selection in the draft, the Washington Capitals selected Ryan Johansson's brother, Lucas Johansson, from the Kelowna Rockets of the WHL. Johansson was coming off of a 49-point season in 69 games with Kelowna and was looking poised to be a strong offensive defenseman of the future. His next season with Kelowna was a slight downgrade as he scored 41 points in 68 games to finish off his junior career before moving up to the AHL. With the Hershey Bears, Johansson started off his time with the Caps organization by scoring 27 points in 74 games, but over the next 3 seasons only played 59 out of a possible 171 games due to various injuries. In those 59 games from 2018 to 2021, Johansson only scored 3 goals and 15 assists for 18 points and had a career plus-minus of -22. However, now that he is back to full health in this 2021-22 season, he has 24 points in 44 games with a +24 with Hershey, which puts him on a pace of 41 points in 76 games, which would be a career high by far. Due to his strong play in the AHL, Johansson got the call to the NHL in December of 2021 when the Caps were having COVID troubles, and in doing so, Johansson was the last player from the 2016 draft's first round to play an NHL game. In that game, he registered an assist before being sent back down. Although his injury troubles may be dissipating and the future actually looks quite bright, Johansson hasn't exactly lived up to what the Capitals were hoping from him just yet, and if they had the opportunity to do it over again, they may have gone in another direction. When redrafting, I have the Capitals selecting Victor Mete as the 9th best defenseman of his class. Now, this may sound like a surprise or maybe even be laughable because Mete is not the flashiest name in the league and he has been scratched quite a bit on 2 not-so-great teams. But when looking at the stats, I was quite surprised and I had to put him 9th. In the 2016 draft, Mete was drafted 100th overall by the Montreal Canadiens, and after playing 1 more year with the London Knights of the OHL, putting up 44 points in 50 games, made the jump to the NHL in 2017-18. Mete played in 49 games in his rookie season with the Habs, scoring 7 assists along the way while averaging 15.5 minutes of ice time per night. In 2018-19, he suited up for 71 games with the Habs, this time registering 13 assists while averaging close to 18 minutes of ice time per night. Over the next 2 seasons, Mete started to fall out of grace as he only played in 65 more games, but scored an additional 4 goals and 15 points before being claimed off of waivers by the Senators in April of 2021. With the Sens, Mete has scored 1 goal and 9 points in 45 games. Now, nothing that I have said so far is super impressive, aside from how he has now played in 230 games, which is 5th among the drafted D-men of 2016. However, get ready for this. Through his 230 games, Mete has been on the ice for 2.6 goals for per 60 minutes, not bad, and only 2.3 against per 60, which is one of the lowest of his class. Furthermore, if you remove the 4.0 goals against per 60 minutes that he's seen this season with Ottawa, objectively not very good at all, his career numbers would actually drop from 2.3 to 2.15 goals against per 60, which would be the absolute lowest of the D-men drafted in 2016 who have played 100 games or more. Add in a career team save percentage of 92.3 when on the ice, which is 3rd highest of all D-men in his class, and Mete somehow has some of the best advanced stats of all of the D-men of 2016. Put Mete on a team that isn't at the bottom of the league, and I believe that his numbers would be even better. I would argue that as time goes on, Mete will only get better, and the Capitals would love to have him be mentored by the likes of John Carlson. Will other names who didn't make the top 10 like Logan Stanley pass Mete in future years? Possibly so, but Mete has solid numbers over 200 plus NHL games and deserves some respect. With the 20th overall selection, the Detroit Red Wings selected the 8th D-man of the draft in Dennis Cholowski. Cholowski was coming off of a 40-point season in 50 games with the Chilliwack Chiefs of the British Columbia Hockey League. Cholowski had an eventful next few years as he scored 12 points in 36 games at St. Cloud State, played 1 game with the Red Wings AHL affiliate Grand Rapids Griffins, started 2017-18 with the Prince George Cougars of the WHL, putting up 39 points in 37 games, was traded to the Portland Winterhawks where he scored another 27 points in 32 games, and finally saw NHL minutes in 2018-19. In his rookie season, he saw career highs in games played, goals, assists, and points as he scored 7 goals and 16 points across 52 games. He also put up 12 points in 25 games with the Griffins in the AHL. Cholowski went on to split the next 2 seasons between the NHL and the AHL, putting up 11 points in 52 NHL games and 23 points in 43 AHL games. Surprisingly, Cholowski couldn't find a permanent spot in the unimpressive Red Wings blue line, and in the 2021 offseason was claimed by the Seattle Kraken in the expansion draft. Cholowski was a healthy scratch with the Kraken, another team with an unimpressive blue line, and ended up being placed on waivers by the team. Cholowski was subsequently claimed by the Capitals and got a shot in the NHL, playing 7 games and registering an assist along the way with Washington. Cholowski was then placed on waivers once more and was reclaimed by the Seattle Kraken and then assigned to the Charlotte Checkers of the AHL, where he has put up 11 points in 16 games since. Although he hasn't played very much, Cholowski is on the ice for an average of 3.4 goals against per 60 minutes through his 111 games, tied for the highest of the D-men in his class. But to be fair, this does include the 6.0 goals against per 60 in his 7 games with the Capitals. Although he has done quite well in the AHL, I believe it's safe to say that Cholowski didn't quite turn into what the Red Wings had hoped he would be. In our redraft, I have the Red Wings selecting Jake Bean with the 20th overall selection. Drafted as an offensive defenseman out of the WHL, Bean has not had an immense amount of NHL experience, but has certainly shown signs of brilliance. In 4 seasons as a defenseman with the Calgary Hitmen and Tri-City Americans, Bean scored 196 points across 219 games before moving up to the Charlotte Checkers of the AHL in 2018-19 and scoring 44 points in 70 games. Bean would also make his NHL debut that year, suiting up for 2 games. Bean spent the entirety of the 2019-20 season in the AHL, scoring 48 points in 59 games before becoming a full-time NHLer in 2020-21. In his rookie season, Bean scored 1 goal and 12 points in 42 games, a fairly respectable rookie season, especially considering that he played 14.5 minutes a night. Despite his offense, Coach Rod Brind'Amour had trouble trusting him defensively, which led him to being traded to the Blue Jackets for a second-round pick at the 2021 draft after just 1 season with the Canes. Since arriving on the Blue Jackets, Bean has played in 45 games, putting up 4 goals and 16 points while averaging about 21 minutes of ice time per night. Furthermore, Bean is on the ice for an average of 2.4 goals for per 60 minutes, 2.7 against per 60 minutes, and has an on-ice team save percentage of 91.8%. With much ice time and decent numbers like these only in his second NHL season, I believe that the defensive side of Bean's game will only continue to develop, and that the Canes may regret this trade someday soon. With the 18th overall pick in the draft, the Winnipeg Jets selected the 7th highest ranked defenseman of the class in Logan Stanley. Stanley was drafted as a behemoth of a player, having just scored 17 points and logging 103 penalty minutes in 64 games with the Windsor Spitfires of the OHL as a 6'7" juggernaut. Stanley progressed quite nicely in the OHL, scoring 4 points in his first season and finishing with 42 points in his 4th season. At the end of his 4th season in the OHL, Stanley had 80 points in 219 games, along with an additional 336 penalty minutes. People knew not to mess with Stanley. To begin the 2018-19 season, Stanley got to play with the Manitoba Moose of the AHL, and in 2 seasons there, scored 33 points in 117 games, adding another 143 penalty minutes. Similar to his time in the OHL, Stanley's time in the NHL has been a gradual improvement, as he scored 4 points in his 37-game rookie season in 2020-21, but his sophomore season has seen him score 11 points through 45 games. Although he hasn't been the flashiest of players, Stanley is on the ice for an average of only 1.9 goals against per 60 minutes and has the highest team on-ice save percentage of his class at 93.4%. The only reason Stanley isn't in the top 10 right now is due to the small sample size. I have him as 11th best, just below Peak, since he, in an 82-game average, blocks 101 shots in comparison to Peak's 139. These are very good numbers, even better than some in the top 10, but Stanley only has 82 games played. Stanley will be a very interesting player to watch develop over the next few seasons, and is a perfect example of why I'd love to revisit these rankings in a few years from now. When it comes to the redraft, we're starting to split hairs, and the type of defenseman that the player is would likely be what makes the difference for a team that's drafting. That being said, I would have Dante Fabro going here at 18 to the Winnipeg Jets. Just like Dennis Cholowski, Fabro was drafted out of the British Columbia Hockey League, where he had put up 100 points through 91 games. After being drafted, he spent 3 years with Boston University, where he put up another 80 points in 112 games. In 2019, Fabro made his NHL debut with the Predators, scoring a goal in 4 regular season games, and even registered an assist when trusted to suit up in 6 playoff games. 2019-20 would end up being his rookie year, and in it, he scored 11 points in 64 games as he clocked in at just over 19 minutes of ice time per night. His ice time would remain steady over the next 2 seasons as he put up another 30 points in 89 games from 2020 to the current 2021-22 season. Over an 82-game average, Fabro is good for 22 points in addition to 113 blocked shots, a part of his game that is coming along very nicely. Over the course of his 157-game career, Fabro is on the ice for an average of 2.5 goals for every 60 minutes, including 3.2 per 60 this season, 2.4 goals against per 60 minutes, and the Predators have a save percentage of 90.9% when he is on the ice. Now you may be saying, why would Fabro be drafted over Stanley if his numbers don't sound quite as good? Fabro is on the ice for more goals for, and he blocks more shots, but is admittedly around for more goals against. I believe that is understandable when comparing Stanley's 14.5 minutes per night over 82 games to Fabro's 19 minutes per night over 157 games, almost twice as many. All this being said, Fabro has been developing exceptionally well in the Predators system, which is renowned for defense, and getting to learn from Roman Josi definitely doesn't hurt either. I believe that Fabro will be an elite player in years to come, and Winnipeg would have loved for him to have slipped just one more spot in the draft. As we just covered, with the 17th overall selection in the draft, the Nashville Predators selected Dante Fabro. I only have great things to say about Fabro, but I do have a bit of a surprise ranked above him, and would actually have the Predators using their selection of the 6th highest defenseman in the 2016 draft on Ryan Lindgren. Once again, I'll let the numbers do the talking. In the 2016 draft, Lindgren was drafted 49th overall by the Boston Bruins. Lindgren had looked solid for the U.S. national under-18 team, and after being drafted, played 2 seasons for the University of Minnesota. There, he played the big man role and registered 16 points and 116 penalty minutes over the course of 67 games. While in his second season of Big Ten hockey, Lindgren was traded from the Bruins with Matt Bolesky, Ryan Spooner, a 7th-round pick, and a 1st-round pick, which would later be part of a deal that got the Rangers Keandre Miller, in exchange for 11 regular season games and 12 playoff games of Rick Nash. The Bruins certainly have some mixed feelings about that one now, a few years down the road. But now in the Rangers organization, Lindgren moved to the Hartford Wolfpack of the AHL and registered 18 points and 123 penalty minutes in 84 games from 2017-18 to 2019-20. Lindgren made his NHL debut in 2018-19, but ended up having his rookie season in 2019-20 as he suited up for 60 games, registering 14 points and was a plus 16. Over his next 2 seasons, his offensive output increased while his defensive numbers got more and more impressive, all the while reducing his number of visits to the penalty box. Now through 172 NHL games, Lindgren has an 82-game average of 3 goals, 20 points, and 117 blocked shots, but in this 2021-22 season, he is on pace for 170 blocked shots, which would put him in the top 5 to 10 of the league for just about any given year in the last decade plus. In these 172 games with the Rangers, New York has a save percentage of 92% when Lindgren is on the ice, as well as 3 goals for per 60 minutes and only 2.3 against, among the lowest of the D-men in his class who have played at least 100 games. I don't put much stock into plus minus, but you gotta give the guy credit for also being a plus 49 over the last 3 seasons while playing 18 to 20 plus minutes per night. Lindgren has transitioned his game a bit away from just the big man on the blue line to a complete defender, as demonstrated by the numbers. He is also consistently in the 50 penalty minutes or so range in the NHL, as opposed to the 100 plus that he was clocking in the AHL. I'm not trying to say that the Preds whiffed by taking Fabro over Lindgren here at 17, but I'm just pointing out that both offensively and defensively, Lindgren currently has the edge and seems to just be getting better. Honestly, one of the more underrated D-men of the NHL. With the 16th overall selection in the draft, the Arizona Coyotes selected the 5th defenseman to go in Jakob Chychrun. Now, I'm actually going to put Chychrun's story on pause because since I have him ranked more highly, I'll get to him soon. As the adjusted selection in this redraft, I have the Coyotes selecting Samuel Girard, who ended up going at 47th overall to the Nashville Predators. I don't have Girard ranked here at number 5 because he's better than Chychrun, but rather because Chychrun would have already been drafted, as we will soon see. So, as I said, we'll save his stats for a moment and get to Girard. With the 47th overall selection in the draft, the Nashville Predators selected the explosive offensive defenseman out of the QMJHL, Samuel Girard. In his draft year, Girard scored 74 points in 67 games with Shawinigan, and by the end of his 190 games in the Q, Girard registered an extremely impressive 192 points. Girard finished off 2017 by playing 6 games with Nashville's AHL affiliate, the Milwaukee Admirals, and to start 2017-18 was ready to play full-time with the Preds in the NHL. Girard would only play 5 games with Nashville, scoring 1 goal and 2 assists, before being a major piece in the 3-team Matt Duchene trade that saw him get moved to Colorado. What the Predators got out of this deal was Kyle Turris, but he only played 3 seasons with the Predators, scoring 96 points over 182 games, before he had the final 4 years of his contract bought out before the 2020-21 season. Girard instantly made the Avalanche lineup to continue his rookie season, scoring 20 points in 68 games with the Avs, while registering over 17.5 minutes per night. And the rest has been history. Girard is now a mainstay on the Avs blue line, and since as early as his 2nd season with the team, has consistently been logging 20 to 23 minutes of ice time per night. It's crazy to think that as a 23-year-old who was drafted in the 2nd round, Girard has already played in over 300 NHL games, and over an 82-game average is good for 34 points and even 92 blocked shots to boot. Furthermore, those numbers have significantly improved over the last 2 seasons, as his 82-game average from 2020 to 2022 has increased to 47 points and 102 blocked shots. Extremely impressive numbers for a defenseman who is often thought of as offense only. Add in some respectable metrics that include his team's 2.7 goals for per 60 minutes, 2.5 goals against per 60 minutes, and an on-ice save percentage of 91.7%, and you have a very solid defenseman who is already performing well beyond his years, with only more to come. Certainly a player that the Coyotes would have liked to have during their years of Ekman-Larsson, Keller, and Garland, among others. Now moving on to the Boston Bruins selection of Charlie McAvoy at 14th overall, we can take a look at the aforementioned Jakob Chychrun. Once again, this selection is not being made because the player, that being Chychrun, is better than McAvoy, but because the original player, that being McAvoy, would have already had been drafted at this point. That being said, we'll revisit Charlie McAvoy later on. As the 4th highest defenseman to be drafted, I would have Chychrun moving up from 16th to 14th. Originally drafted as the 5th D-man to go, the Coyotes received this 16th overall selection in the draft from the Detroit Red Wings in exchange for the 53rd overall selection, which became Filip Hronek, and swallowing the final year of Pavel Datsyuk's 3-year, $22.5 million contract. It carried a cap hit of $7.5 million, and with Ken Holland trying to keep the Wings competitive before the rest of his core retired, he paid a pretty heavy price to dump Datsyuk's contract. This extra cap space allowed Detroit to sign Peter Mrazek to a bridge deal, re-sign Darren Helm for 5 years at $3.85 million per year, and lock up Danny DeKeyser for 6 years at $5 million per year. Suffice to say, things did not go very well in 2016-17 for the Wings, nor in the years that have followed. But back to Chychrun. With cap space to spare, the Coyotes were happy to take on Datsyuk's contract and drafted the big 6'2" defenseman out of Sarnia of the OHL. In 2 seasons in the juniors, Chychrun was a man amongst boys with his physicality and added 82 points in 104 games. In 2016, he made the jump directly to the NHL and suited up for 68 games with the Coyotes in his rookie season, scoring 7 goals and 20 points along the way, while being responsible for over 16.5 minutes of ice time per night. After this rookie season, he began to log 20-plus minutes per night and never looked back as he slowly transformed into the Coyotes' workhorse. From 2016 to the present day, Chychrun has played in an impressive 337 games, and now just a few weeks away from his 24th birthday, seems to be showing that he can be extremely valuable at both ends of the ice, as evidenced by his 18-goal, 41-point season over 56 games in 2020-21 that landed him 10th place in Norris voting. Over an 82-game average, you can expect Chychrun to put up 34 points and block 122 shots, but I think what's most impressive are his metrics. Being on the ice for 2.4 goals for per 60 minutes on the Arizona Coyotes is one thing, but to only be on the ice for 2.8 goals against per 60 minutes is what shocks me. We're talking about a team that has a goal differential of negative 198 and allows an average of 3.05 goals per game since Chychrun joined in 2016. When Chychrun played with the likes of Alex Goligoski and Oliver Ekman-Larsson, his on-ice goals against per 60 was 2.45 over his first 4 seasons. But now that the Coyotes' defense drops off dramatically after him and Shane Gostisbehere, the number has increased to 3.5 against per 60 over the last 2 seasons. That just goes to show that when on a half-decent team, Chychrun can most certainly deliver, and should he be traded in the coming weeks or months, as has been speculated, he will thrive immensely. It definitely makes one wonder what kind of metrics he would have had he had been drafted by a stronger team, such as the Boston Bruins. Now entering the top 3 of the defensive class of 2016, we have the Carolina Hurricanes selecting Jake Bean at 13th overall. As previously mentioned, Jake Bean is a great player who is only getting better, but with Charlie McAvoy going at 14, the very next selection, and Jake Chychrun at 16, just a couple after that, I think that the Hurricanes messed this one up. Although the Hurricanes will actually be getting a player who was already off the board in this redraft, it's definitely a hard-hitting reality that McAvoy or Chychrun could have easily gone to Carolina. That being said, in our redraft, the Carolina Hurricanes would receive the 3rd-ranked defenseman of the draft in Mikhail Sergachev. It may be a bit surprising to see Sergachev here, as he leads all defensemen drafted in 2016 in games played at 339, but stay with me. Sergachev was drafted 9th overall by the Montreal Canadiens out of the Windsor Spitfire of the OHL, where he was coming off of a 57-point, 67-game season. In 2016-17, Sergachev got a 4-game tryout with the Canadiens before being returned to Windsor for his 2nd season with the Spitfires. In that 2nd season, Sergachev scored 43 points in 50 games and was poised to make the Montreal Canadiens lineup to start 2017-18, as in those 4 NHL games that he played, he averaged 12 minutes a night and did not look out of place at all. However, before the 2017 draft, after less than a year with the Canadiens organization, Sergachev was traded to the Tampa Bay Lightning for Jonathan Drouin. At the time, there were mixed reviews for this trade, as yes, the Canadiens received a Quebecois star who was drafted 3rd overall in 2013 and was coming off of 53 points in 73 games, but it cost them their number 1 left-handed D-man of the future, the prospect many hailed as the next Andrei Markov. Since the trade, I believe that Drouin has done better than most would give him credit for, as he has averaged about 50 points per 82 games with Montreal, but the trade is unquestionably regrettable and will unfortunately go down in history as Marc Bergevin's worst. How much was it Bergevin and how much was it the French media calling for the Habs to acquire un gars de chez nous, aka a Quebec-born talent? Hard to tell. Regardless, Sergachev has definitely made Habs fans feel the pain of moving him prematurely, and hopefully sticks in the minds of every Quebecer who ever thinks about calling for Caulfield, Suzuki, and Romanov to be traded for Alexis Lafrenière, for example. But I digress. On the Tampa Bay Lightning, Sergachev made the lineup right away, and in his rookie season, registered an extremely impressive 40 points in 79 games while playing under 15.5 minutes per night, good enough to place him 11th in Calder voting. Since his rookie season, Sergachev's ice time has increased by about a minute or two per year, and he is now relied upon for over 22.5 minutes per night, putting up 41 points and blocking over 100 shots in an 82-game average. Sergachev also has something I haven't been able to talk about much yet in this class, and that is playoff games. Sergachev has scored 20 points over 69 playoff games from 4 playoff berths, and hey, has 2 Stanley Cup rings at the age of 23. Add in a career on-ice goals for of 3.0 and against of 2.4 per 60 minutes, along with a 91.9 on-ice team save percentage, and you get one of the top and most elite defensemen in the NHL who hasn't even turned 24 yet. That's why it feels pretty crazy to have him ranked 3rd in this class. If you're Carolina, just imagine a defensive core of Sergachev, Slavin, D'Angelo Pesce, and Shea with Bear. Scary. With the 9th overall selection in the draft, the Montreal Canadiens selected Mikhail Sergachev. This was an extremely smart decision, especially since I remember many calling for the Habs to take Logan Brown, but as we already know, Sergachev wouldn't stay with the Canadiens for very long. It's impossible to know whether or not they would have kept this redrafted defenseman any longer, but nonetheless, in our redraft, we can go ahead and give the Habs the 2nd-ranked defenseman of this class in Charlie McAvoy. McAvoy was drafted 14th overall by the Boston Bruins out of Boston University and has honestly been a match made in heaven. Although I do have another D-man ranked above McAvoy, I do see this selection as the best pick of the draft in terms of drafting who was expected to go in this range of picks. McAvoy was coming off of a 25-point campaign with Boston U over 37 games, and in 2016-17 did more of the same with 26 points in 38 games. At the end of 2017, McAvoy was sent to the Providence Bruins, where he registered a couple of assists in 4 games before he was added to the Bruins' 2017 NHL postseason squad. The Bruins would play McAvoy in all 6 games of their first-round defeat to the Ottawa Senators. Although it was a disappointing exit, McAvoy averaged over 26 minutes per night and registered 3 assists along the way. This ice time was largely in part to 3 games in the series going to overtime and 1 even to double overtime, but minutes like that for a rookie still say something. In his rookie season, McAvoy suited up for 63 games, scoring 32 points while playing over 22 minutes a night, which had him finish 5th in Calder voting. McAvoy has become a rock on the Bruins' blue line, as the likes of Zdeno Chara and Torrey Krug have moved on, enough so that he signed an 8-year, $76 million extension in October of 2021, which will kick in next season and give him a $9.5 million cap hit until 2030. He has definitely earned that price tag, as over an 82-game average, he can be counted on for 45 points, 133 blocked shots, and even 150 hits, along with 3.3 goals for and 2.4 goals against per 60 minutes when on the ice. Add in 32 points over 65 playoff games, and McAvoy has proven himself as a player who delivers wherever and whenever he is needed. He doesn't have the rings like Sergachev does, but he does score more, is on the ice for more offense, is on the ice for higher defense, blocks more shots, and throws out more hits. Enough for me to rank him as number 2 in this class. Even as a Habs fan, I would give just about anything to have Charlie McAvoy on my team. Arriving finally at the number 1 defensive selection in the 2016 draft, we have the reason for why I was inspired to make this video. At 5th overall, the Vancouver Canucks selected Olli Juolevi, a player who is unfortunately viewed as one of the biggest draft busts of the last 5 to 10 years. Why things haven't worked out for Juolevi is an unfortunate story. I couldn't find any draft rankings from 2016 that did not have Juolevi as the number 1 defenseman on their list, especially considering how he had scored 9 points in 7 games and played the most minutes of any player on the gold medal winning Team Finland at the 2016 World Juniors. All signs pointed to elite NHL caliber, and Vancouver was ecstatic to draft Juolevi at number 5, as the team's defense didn't really go far beyond Alex Edler and Chris Tanev at the time. And after Juolevi had just scored 42 points in 57 games with the London Knights, some offensive output was expected as well. Juolevi went on to play 1 more season with London, scoring another 42 points in 58 games, and in 2017-18 was loaned to TPS Turku of the Finnish Liga, where he put up 19 points in 38 games, very respectable numbers for a 19-year-old. However, things started to go downhill from here as over the 2018 offseason, Juolevi got back surgery and was towards the bottom of the Canucks' left-handed defensive depth chart. Juolevi eventually got back to full health and with the Utica Comets of the AHL once again put up respectable numbers with 13 points in 18 games, but had his season cut short due to an unfortunate knee injury that kept him out for the rest of the year. Juolevi looked poised to make the jump to the NHL for the 2019-20 season, but once again found him pushed down the depth chart as other players, namely the newly drafted Quinn Hughes, leapfrogged him for NHL minutes. Juolevi would play the 2019-20 season with Utica, this time getting in 25 points over 45 games, but once again did not get a full season in due to injury trouble. Juolevi actually made his NHL debut with the Canucks in the 2020 postseason, but only got to play for about 6 minutes with zeros across the board. At this point, Juolevi has had 3 surgeries and a nagging hip issue before even making his NHL regular season debut. In 2020-21, Juolevi finally got his chance in the NHL, but only played in 23 games, scoring 2 goals and 1 assist. Through those 23 games, Juolevi only played about 13 minutes a night, but still found a way to be responsible defensively and averaged over a blocked shot per night. However, in October of 2021, over 5 years after drafting him, the Canucks decided to pull the plug on the Olli Juolevi experiment and trade him to the Florida Panthers for Juho Lammikko, a former 2014 third-rounder who has since become a regular for the Canucks, and Noah Juulsen, another former first-round D-man who has had his fair share of injury troubles. The Panthers immediately sent Juolevi to the Charlotte Checkers for a conditioning stint, where he registered an assist in 3 games before getting the call to the NHL squad. With the Panthers, Juolevi was scoreless over 10 games, blocking 6 shots and logging 12.5 minutes per night. This didn't quite cut it for the cup-contending Panthers, and just a couple weeks ago on March 6th of 2022, the Panthers placed Juolevi on waivers. Juolevi was subsequently picked up by the Detroit Red Wings, and if anyone can tap into his buried potential, it will be Steve Yzerman. Through Juolevi's small 33-game sample size at the NHL level and 66 games at the AHL level, he has shown a slow but gradual improvement. His coaches are content with his growth, he has shown the ability to contribute offensively, and isn't afraid to block shots. Honestly though, maybe he should be, as who knows what his career may have looked like today were it not for his various injuries and surgeries. It will be exciting to see if Juolevi can turn his bad luck around, as I believe that he still has a lot to give, and I do in fact believe in his ability, but as of right now, he unfortunately does have the title of draft bust over his head. Arriving finally at who I have as number 1 in the defensive class of 2016, there really isn't much that separates the top 3 of Sergachev, McAvoy, and this player. However, as I have been doing, let's allow the stats to do the talking. With the 66th overall selection in the draft, the Calgary Flames drafted Adam Fox out of the U.S. National Under-18 team, where he was coming off of 22 points in 25 games with the national team and 59 points in 64 games with the U.S. Development Program. The Flames were impressed with Fox's offensive instincts, and with their 3rd-round pick, decided to take a shot on him since he was still available, seemingly due to his smaller size. Fox was committed to Harvard University and in no rush to leave, especially considering the rumors that started soon after his being drafted that he did not want to play in Calgary. Fox would stick with Harvard for 3 full years, scoring 116 points across 97 games as he racked up a ton of awards along the way. The rumors of Fox not wanting to play in Calgary became reality when, at the 2018 draft, Fox was traded in a monster deal that sent him, Dougie Hamilton, and Michael Furland to the Hurricanes in exchange for Elias Lindholm and Noah Hanifin. However, it seemed as though the issue wasn't that Fox didn't want to play in Calgary, but that he truly wanted to play for his hometown New York Rangers. So after once again not being interested in signing with the team that owned his rights, the Hurricanes traded Fox to New York in April of 2019 in exchange for 2 second-round picks. Fox was finally where he wanted to be all along and was ready to take the NHL by storm. Get ready for these numbers. In Fox's 2019-20 rookie season, he averaged 19 minutes a night, scoring 42 points over 70 games, and was on pace for 49 points as he finished 4th in Calder voting. In Fox's 2nd season, he averaged over 24.5 minutes per night, scored 47 points in 55 games, was on pace for 70 points, finished 13th in Hart Trophy voting, and oh yeah, won the James Norris Trophy. In Fox's current third season, he is once again averaging over 24 minutes a night, has 58 points in 56 games, is on pace for 85 points, and certainly more Norris votes. Now, many people may think that Fox is offense only and that he shouldn't be ranked more highly than McAvoy or Sergachev. You may be surprised to hear, though, that in addition to the points that I've previously mentioned, Fox also blocks 137 shots over an 82-game average and is only on the ice for an average of 2.4 goals against every 60 minutes despite his high ice time. If you think that's too high, his being on the ice for 3.3 goals for every 60 minutes should even it out. Remember, these are even strength numbers. If you look at the power play, Fox is on the ice for an average of 4.0 goals per 60 minutes. If you want a number to compare that to, Connor McDavid is on the ice for 4.8 goals per 60 power play minutes. Although it is a smaller sample size as we're comparing Fox's 180-ish games to Sergachev and McAvoy, who are both around 300, Fox does have the edge both offensively and defensively, with only more to come. He is undoubtedly one of the premier defensemen of the NHL, and in this redraft, you can just imagine how the Canucks would have loved to have had him. And thus concludes this redraft of the defenseman class of the 2016 NHL Entry Draft. I hope that you enjoyed this deep dive because if you're like me, stats like this never get old. This has already been quite a long one as there was a lot to say about the players in this top 10, so I'll just go ahead and end it here. Thank you for taking the time to watch and listen as this is a multi-day process for me to make. I hope that you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like if you did indeed enjoy it. Leave a comment with what you thought about this class and my rankings, and feel free to drop a suggestion on the next draft class that you would like to see and hear me cover. And if you're new to the channel, we'd love to have you join the team, so be sure to subscribe to get more of these top 10 videos, NHL 22 franchise mode, and much more. Thank you once again, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.